Hi guys, welcome to another episode of The Lord's Delight. Today, I'm going to talk about stepping out in faith, which is a very scary thing to do because when we see the circumstances don't align up with what God is telling us to do, and we literally sometimes figuratively have to take a step of faith. It is not easy, but time and time again, so many people in the Bible have done it. So we are going to draw courage from that and obey God when He says just step out in faith. Because we are not people who are going to live by sight. We have to live by faith, which means trusting God even when we are not able to see it. The very first example of this, I would actually say, is Joshua 3, where the Jordan is parting. And you might ask, hey, they have already seen the Red Sea being parted by Moses. This is something they have been through earlier. So why is this stepping out in faith? Because for Joshua and for the people, it is different here. You ask why? Head to the verse 10. Joshua said, "Here is how you shall know that the living God is among you, and that He will without fail drive out from before you the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Hivites, the Perizzites, the Girgashites, the Amorites, and the Jebusites. Behold, the ark of the covenant of the Lord of all the earth is passing over before you into the Jordan. Now therefore take 12 men from the tribes of Israel, from each tribe a man, and when the soles of the feet of the priests bearing the ark of the Lord of all the earth, shall rest in the waters of the Jordan, the waters of the Jordan shall be cut off from flowing, and the waters coming down from above shall stand in one heap." Here, the priests have to step foot into the water for the water to stop flowing and the downstream water also to stop and raise up. They didn't wait on the bank like the Red Sea, where Moses stretched out the staff and the hand and then it just parted. Here they had to take a step of faith into the water. The priests with Ark of the Covenant, their feet had to hit the water before it parted. They didn't say, "What on earth, Lord, you want us to get into the river?" They just obeyed in the step of faith to know that our God is a God who does what He says, and also to teach us human beings. We are so fickle minded. There is no one formula with God. He is not going to part the waters in the same way again and again. There is no manual. It depends upon what He says and how we obey. That is how it works. The second example is such an extreme example, Ruth. She is a Moabite woman who says to Naomi, her mother-in-law, "Your God is my God, your people are my people." Even if we take that as an emotional outburst, she follows through with faith because Jews considered Moabites the lowest form of the low. We even see in the Old Testament where the Lord calls Moab His washpot. Not a nice name to be called, but it was because of their origin, right? How Moabites came into being. So that's topic for another day. But Ruth stuck with her mother-in-law. Imagine, she's leaving the land that she has known, her own people, to go with an older woman, her mother-in-law. At that point, she did not know that she'll have another life. All she knew was, "I believe in your God. Your people will be my people. I'm coming with you." Such a step of faith. And traveling from one country to another, two women by themselves in those days, it was dangerous. But Ruth did it. Not just that, one of the most revolutionary women in the Old Testament, because Ruth proposed to Boaz based on what her mother-in-law said. She obeyed and stepped out in faith. And there are so many things that she was willing to work hard from morning till evening, back-breaking work in the fields, all because of faith. She was just stepping out. Even Naomi said, a lot of things could have gone wrong. You could have been harmed, but because Ruth stepped out in faith, God protected her so much. And not just that, this Moabite clan, which the Jews looked down upon, God was so gracious because of the faith of Ruth and made her join in the lineage of Christ. That was such a blessing. The next instance I want to talk to you about is in Matthew chapter 14 verses 22 to 33, where Jesus walks on water. Nowadays it has become phrase, right? Oh, he can walk on water when people do extraordinary things, or we use that, but that literally came from this portion. Jesus made the disciples get on the boat, go ahead of him to the other side. Then he dismissed the crowd. He went to the mountain to pray. And this boat had already, the Bible says, considerable distance from the land. And then verse 25 says, shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them walking on the lake. When the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. They thought it was a ghost. And then Jesus immediately said to them, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. He wanted them to have courage. And then look at Peter's reply. He says, Lord, if it's you, tell me to come to you on water. What a courage. We could have asked for n number of things. And this guy says, tell me to come to you on the water. And when Jesus says come, can you imagine middle of the lake, just putting feet outside the boat, stepping onto the water because Jesus said so? Here it says, then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water and came toward Jesus. Such stepping out in faith, yes. When he saw the wind, he was afraid and he began to sink, but Lord was there to save him. You see the difference between the two sentences. Peter was willing to get out of the boat to walk on water. Let's say if Jesus says that to you and me, hey, come on, I'm waiting, just step out of the boat onto the water, I will be terrified. I'll be like, Lord, I would love to talk to you, but you please come in, get in the boat. And as long as the faith held, he was walking on water. But as soon as, instead of looking at God and having faith, he began to get afraid, looking at the wind, he began to sink. That sums up everything I'm trying to tell today. As long as we hear God and in faith step out and do what he wants, we will keep going on walking with him. But the good thing is, even if we begin to sink, we have a Lord who immediately reaches out and says, O ye of little faith, why did you doubt? And then catches us. He's not somebody who will let us drown. But stepping out in faith is just one side of a coin. There is another side to this coin, and they both go hand in hand. You ask me what? Well, we'll talk about it next week. Bye.